Hey there, deep divers. Ready to dive into a problem that's like practically invisible, but like seriously huge.
Ooh, I like that.
Yeah, we're talking about microplastics. Those those tiny pieces of plastic less than 5 millimeters long
Wow.
that are turning up
Yeah.
everywhere.
Everywhere.
From the top of Mount Everest to the deepest trenches of the ocean.
Oh, wow.
And get this, they're even showing up in our bodies.
It is a bit unnerving, isn't it, to think that something so small can have such a widespread impact.
Yeah.
And it's not just those obvious plastic items like
Right.
water bottles and bags.
Right.
We're talking about everything from car tires wearing down
Uh-huh.
to those tiny microbeads that used to be in some face scrubs,
Right.
all breaking down into these microscopic pieces that end up in our environment.
Okay, so we've established that microplastics are everywhere, but why should we care? What's the big deal about these tiny bits of plastic?
Well, imagine you're a tiny sea creature just trying to live your best life in the ocean. Suddenly, your world is filled with these tiny plastic particles that look like food. You gobble them up thinking you've scored a delicious meal.
Yeah.
But instead, you're filling your stomach with something that can't be digested.
Yeah,
Not a great scenario, right?
definitely not. So these microplastics are harming wildlife.
Yeah.
But what about the bigger picture? How do they impact ecosystems?
Think of it like this. Ecosystems are these incredibly complex
Hmm.
and delicate webs of interconnected life.
Okay.
When you introduce a foreign element like microplastics, it throws things off balance.
Right.
It can disrupt food chains, damage habitats,
Yeah.
and even alter the chemical composition of the water.
Wow. So it's like a domino effect.
Yeah.
Starting with these tiny particles and rippling out to impacts the entire ecosystem.
Exactly.
That's pretty alarming. And you mentioned they're even showing up in our bodies.
Yeah.
What does that mean for human health?
Well, that's the million-dollar question. Unfortunately, we don't have all the answers yet. Research is ongoing,
Okay.
but there's growing concern that these microplastics could have negative impacts on our health.
Okay.
They've been found in our food, our water, even our blood.
Wow.
It's still early days, but it's definitely something we need to be paying attention to.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So we've got this massive problem on our hands.
Yeah,
But surely scientists are working on solutions, right?
of course. There's a lot of brilliant minds working on ways to tackle this microplastic crisis.
Okay.
And here's where it gets really interesting.
So
Some researchers in China have developed a surprisingly effective way to remove microplastics from water
okay.
using a rather unexpected ingredient,
Okay, what is it?
squid bones.
Squid bones.
Yeah.
Now that's what I call thinking outside the box.
Right.
I have to admit, I never would have guessed squid bones could play a role in cleaning up our planet.
Yeah, it sounds like something straight out of a science fiction novel.
Ah,
But it's actually a pretty ingenious solution.
okay.
These researchers have created a biodegradable sponge made from chitin,
Okay.
the main component of squid bones,
Yeah.
and cellulose, which comes from cotton.
Okay, so they've created this sponge.
Right.
But how does it actually work? Does it just soak up the microplastic like a regular sponge?
It's actually much more sophisticated than that.
Okay.
This sponge uses a two-pronged approach.
Okay.
First, it physically traps the microplastics within its porous structure.
Uh-huh.
Think of it like a tiny net catching those little plastic particles.
Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah.
But what's the second part of the attack?
This is where it gets really cool.
Okay.
The sponge also attracts microplastics electromagnetically.
Wait, hold up.
Yeah.
A microplastic magnet. How does that even work?
It turns out that both chitin and cellulose
Ah,
have properties that allow them to interact with microplastics on an electromagnetic level.
okay.
It's like they create this invisible force field
Okay.
that draws the microplastics in,
Wow.
making the sponge even more effective at capturing those pesky particles.
So it's not just a net. It's a net with a built-in magnet.
Yeah.
That's seriously impressive.
Yeah.
But how well does it actually work in the real world?
The results are pretty remarkable.
Okay.
They tested the sponge in a variety of water sources,
Yeah.
from irrigation water and ponds
Yeah.
to lakes and even seawater,
Okay.
and it removed up to 99.9% of microplastics.
99.9%. That's incredible.
Yeah, it's pretty amazing.
So this isn't just some lab experiment. It actually has the potential to make a real difference.
Exactly.
But let's talk practicality for a second.
Sure.
We know the problem of microplastics is absolutely massive.
Right.
Can this squid bone sponge really be scaled up to tackle such a widespread issue?
That's the big question.
Yeah.
And it's one that researchers are actively exploring.
Okay.
Good news is that both chitin and cellulose are readily available and relatively inexpensive materials.
No.
We're not talking about some rare earth element that's difficult to mine and process.
Right.
Squid bones are a byproduct of the fishing industry. And cotton is a widely cultivated crop.
Okay.
So from a resource standpoint, this solution has a lot of potential for scalability.
That makes a lot of sense. It's not going to solve a global problem if the solution itself is scarce and expensive.
Right. Yeah.
But even if we can produce these sponges on a large scale, how do we actually deploy them? Are we talking about dropping giant squid bone sponges into the ocean?
It's not quite that simple.
Okay.
But you're on the right track.
Okay.
Researchers are exploring various ways to deploy these sponges depending on the specific water source.
Okay.
For example, they could be incorporated into filtration systems for wastewater treatment plants or used in floating booms to capture microplastics in rivers and lakes.
Okay, so we're talking about integrating these sponges into existing infrastructure.
Exactly.
Which makes a lot of sense.
Right.
It's not just about creating a solution, it's about making sure it's practical and implementable in the real world.
Absolutely.
But this raises another question. If the sponge itself is biodegradable, what happens to the microplastics it collects? Do they just end up back in the environment?
That's a crucial point. While the sponge itself breaks down naturally, the microplastics it captures need to be handled properly.
Right.
We don't want to solve one pollution problem by simply shifting it somewhere else.
Right. We don't want to create a new problem while trying to solve an existing one.
Exactly.
So what are the options for disposing of those trapped microplastics?
Well, that's where the exciting part of ongoing research comes in.
Okay.
Ideally, we want to find ways to not just capture those microplastics, but also break them down into harmless substances.
Okay.
Some scientists are exploring methods like using specific enzymes or microorganisms that can actually digest plastic.
Wow. So we could potentially turn those captured microplastics into something that's actually beneficial for the environment.
Exactly. It's all about finding those nature-inspired solutions that can help us turn a waste product into a valuable resource.
That would be incredible.
Yeah. But while those groundbreaking solutions are being developed, there are still responsible ways to handle the collected microplastics.
Okay.
One option is incineration at high temperatures, which can effectively destroy the plastic while minimizing environmental impact if done properly.
Right.
Another option is to incorporate those microplastics into building materials like bricks or concrete, essentially locking them away in a stable form.
Okay, so we have options for dealing with the microplastics once they're captured.
Yeah.
But let's take a step back and think about the bigger picture.
Sure.
This squid bone sponge is an amazing innovation.
It is.
But it feels like we're addressing the symptom rather than the root cause.
Yeah.
Wouldn't it be better if we didn't have microplastics to clean up in the first place?
Absolutely. Prevention is always better than cure.
Right.
And that's where we as individuals and as a society have a crucial role to play.
Okay.
It's about recognizing that plastic is a valuable resource. It needs to be managed responsibly.
Right.
Not just something we use and throw away.
Right? It's about changing our mindset and our habits.
Exactly.
But with plastic being so ubiquitous in our lives, where do we even begin?
One of the most effective things we can do is simply reduce our plastic consumption.
Okay.
Think about those single-use plastics we encounter every day. Straws, bags, packaging.
Yeah.
Do we really need them?
Right.
Can we choose reusable alternatives?
It's like that classic saying, reduce, reuse, recycle.
Yeah.
And it sounds like reducing should be at the top of our list.
Exactly. And when we do use plastic, let's make sure it's recycled properly.
Okay.
This involves understanding what types of plastics are accepted in our local recycling programs and making sure our recyclables are clean and free from contamination.
It's amazing how much of an impact we can have just by making those small changes in our daily lives.
Yeah, it really is.
But individual actions can only go so far. We need systemic change to really tackle this issue.
Absolutely. We need governments and corporations to step up and implement policies that promote sustainable production and consumption of plastics. This includes things like investing in research and development of biodegradable plastics, supporting recycling infrastructure, and implementing regulations that limit the use of single-use plastics.
So it's a multi-pronged approach with individual actions, corporate responsibility and government regulation.
Exactly.
It sounds like we need all hands on deck to really make a difference.
We do.
But with a problem as massive as microplastic pollution, it's easy to feel overwhelmed and helpless.
I understand.
What can we do to stay motivated and hopeful?
It's true. The scale of the problem can feel daunting.
Yeah.
But remember, every action we take, no matter how small, is a step in the right direction.
Okay.
And when we act collectively, those individual actions can create a ripple effect that leads to real change.
It's like that saying, never doubt that a small group of thoughtful, committed citizens can change the world. Indeed, it is the only thing that ever has.
Exactly. And think about the innovation we've seen with the squid bone sponge.
Yeah.
It's a perfect example of how creative thinking and a willingness to look at things from a different perspective can lead to unexpected solutions.
Yeah.
It's a reminder that we don't have all the answers yet, but we're constantly learning and evolving our understanding of the world around us.
That's such a hopeful message. It's not about despair. It's about empowerment.
Right.
It's about recognizing that we're not powerless in the face of this challenge.
Precisely. And we need that spirit of innovation and optimism to fuel our efforts to find solutions both big and small.
Yeah.
Remember, the future of our planet depends on all of us working together.
So while this research on the squid bone sponge focuses on cleaning up existing microplastics, what about preventing them in the first place? What other innovative solutions can you imagine to tackle plastic pollution at its source?
That's a fantastic question, and it's one that we can all contribute to answering.
Yeah.
Think about the materials we use every day. Can we find ways to replace plastic with more sustainable alternatives?
Okay.
Can we design products that are easier to recycle or biodegrade?
It's like we need to reimagine our relationship with plastic altogether.
Yeah.
To view it not as a disposable material, but as a valuable resource that needs to be managed responsibly throughout its entire life cycle.
You got it. And with a little ingenuity and collective action, we can create a cleaner, healthier planet for ourselves and for future generations.
You know, it's amazing to think that something as humble as a squid bone could hold the key to tackling such a huge problem.
It really speaks to the power of nature, doesn't it?
Yeah.
We often overlook these simple, readily available solutions in our quest for complex technological fixes.
Right.
But sometimes the answers are right there in front of us, waiting to be discovered.
It makes you wonder what other unexpected solutions are out there just waiting to be uncovered.
Yeah.
What if we could harness the power of, say, banana peels or eggshells to solve environmental problems?
Who knows what the future holds? That's the beauty of scientific exploration. It's full of surprises.
Right.
And that's what I find so inspiring about this squid bone sponge research. It's a reminder that we don't have all the answers yet.
Right.
But we're constantly learning and evolving our understanding of the world around us.
It's like we're on this incredible journey of discovery, constantly pushing the boundaries of what's possible.
Yeah.
And the best part is we're all in this together.
Absolutely. Every single one of us has a role to play in creating a more sustainable future.
Yeah.
Whether it's making conscious choices in our daily lives, supporting businesses that prioritize environmental responsibility, or advocating for policies that promote change. We all have the power to make a difference.
So, as we wrap up this deep dive into the world of microplastics and squid bone solutions, what's one final thought you'd like to leave our listeners with?
I'd say this: don't underestimate the power of your own actions.
Okay.
Even small changes can have a ripple effect.
Right.
So keep learning, keep exploring, and keep those creative juices flowing.
Yeah.
Who knows? Maybe one of you listening right now will be the next to discover a groundbreaking solution to one of our planet's greatest challenges.
That's a great note to end on. Remember, deep divers, the future is in our hands.
It is.
Let's make it a future where squid bones are celebrated not just for their culinary uses, but also for their planet-saving potential. Until next time, stay curious and keep diving deep.